are back on the Zero Hour. I am Richard RJ Eskow, broadcasting remote this week from the West Coast. And as regular viewers of this program know, Social Security is a program that is vital to the lives of millions of Americans. And this week we learned that the cost of living adjustment for this year will be zero. Here to discuss that and other issues, related issues, is Max Richtman. Max is the president and CEO of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. He is a veteran of Washington, D.C. He knows how these things work, and he joins us now. Max, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Richard.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. And listen, I wanted to ask you, first of all, about this lack of a cost of living adjustment. Why is this a problem for people on Social Security?
Well, it is a problem. And by the way, just to expand on your introduction, Social Security is vital. It is vital for millions of people, and not just seniors. As you know very well, Social Security is a program that insures families. Yes, when seniors do retire, there are Social Security benefits, but it insures families in the event that a worker becomes disabled or dies young. There's protection for survivors, spouses, and, of course, millions of children. The COLA is so important to the well-being of those receiving Social Security benefits. The COLA, cost of living adjustment, and every senior citizen or person that receives Social Security knows exactly what a COLA means, is meant to make sure that the benefit of Social Security keeps up with inflation, so that recipients do not fall further behind year to year. And that's a good idea. Unfortunately, the way the COLA is calculated does not take into account how inflation is impacting a senior citizen. And it is based on a calculation of the impact of inflation, focusing on that market basket of goods and services that a wage earner counts on, which is a whole different proposition, as you know, from those services and goods that a senior relies on. So the fact that there is inflation is been so low that it translates into a zero COLA does not mean that the cost of living has not gone up.
Sure. I think a couple examples of that, Max, Richtman, are, for example, seniors are more likely to use public transportation, so public transportation costs go up more quickly. Of course, the big one is healthcare, including uncovered healthcare services. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a senior in this country who doesn't feel that he's seen an increase in her or his out-of-pocket costs in some of these areas in the last year, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be virtually impossible. I do, as you know, many town hall meetings around the country. I was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota last Friday, and we expected the COLA to be announced today and be zero. And I asked a group of about 100 seniors, how many of you think there's been no cost of living increase for you in the past year? And they laughed. They laughed. You know, this has happened twice before. I believe it was 2010 and 2011, that same flawed formula led to a zero cost of living, not just increase, not just for 1 year, but 2 years in a row, and that is preposterous. So, you know, as we move through the legislative calendar, we are hoping that there will be some traction on the proposition to redefine the calculation for the COLA, the Consumer Price Index it's called, so that it will take into account appropriately the kinds of things that seniors rely on and measure that inflation on those items from year to year.
Now, at the same time, we're talking with Max Richtman, who is president and CEO of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. So let's add Medicare into the formula, into the mix here. At the same time that this is happening, that we're not seeing an increase in the cost of living adjustment, we are seeing that some Medicare beneficiaries, who of course would be the same senior Americans, are looking at an increase in some of their Medicare-related costs. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it's a little complicated, but the Part B premium that Medicare beneficiaries pay will go up for about 30% of beneficiaries by 52%. 52% from $104.90 to $159.30. That is a huge increase, and this will be ironically accompanied by an increase in the Part B deductible up to $223 annually from $147. So, seniors cannot afford a triple-digit increase for their Medicare coverage. 30% of them are facing that, and at the same time have a zero cost of living increase in their Social Security benefit. And this is a product of a legislative fix that was designed to hold harmless Social Security beneficiaries and Medicare beneficiaries if they're in the event there was a zero COLA. Those beneficiaries would be protected from an increase in the premium or the deductible. Unfortunately, that hold harmless provision, which is in law, does not apply to about 30% of beneficiaries, those that are new to the program, those that do not have the deduction made from Social Security. They're on Medicare, but they may not be on Social Security yet. They're not protected, and those who we identify as duly eligible for both Medicaid and Medicare. So we are very concerned by the projected Part B premium and deductible increases.
And I think it's I think it's also important for people to understand that people who may not be on Medicare yet, that when they do eventually, who may not be collecting Social Security, but who may already be on Medicare, that when the time comes that they do collect Social Security, in fact, when the time comes for any of us to collect Social Security in retirement, if we have a formula that's inadequate, that does not reflect the true increase in costs year over year, we will all suffer at some point from that.
Absolutely, because these numbers, these percentages are all cumulative, as is the COLA. The COLA is applied to the benefit if there is one, and it is built into the base so that the following year that base is higher. So the impact of this is not just for 1 year; it's in perpetuity, as you point out.
Absolutely. We're talking with Max Richtman, who is president and CEO of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. And Max, you know well, as do I and some of our listeners, that one of the reasons why Social Security was set up the way it was during Franklin Roosevelt's administration was because, as FDR said, he wanted to protect it from, and I quote, those damn politicians. Now, without offering such an invective ourselves, I think it's fair to say that there's a good chance it will become a political topic again this year. Mitch McConnell, according to some reports, has privately said that he wants to, and I'm quoting our CNN report here, privately wants the White House to pay a certain price to extract a major budget deal, significant changes, and not good ones, I might add, to Social Security and Medicare in exchange for raising the debt ceiling and funding the government. Is this something we should be concerned about?
Well, this is nothing new. We have seen this dynamic played out many times. You recall a couple of years ago we were talking about the fiscal cliff when all of these issues were wrapped up and came to a head. The debt ceiling, funding to run the government. It is unfortunate that Social Security and Medicare are often dragged into these discussions. Social Security has nothing to do with the federal debt. It has a surplus of close to $3 trillion. Surplus. There isn't a program in government that can make that claim. Most of them run out of money before the year's over and trot up to Congress asking for emergency supplemental appropriations. But time and again, we see this dynamic where these programs are dragged into these high stakes discussions about the debt, the national debt, the budget, and we've really got to stop that. We have seen it just in the past year. You remember the trade deal that is still not finalized, but was being negotiated. We saw deep inside of the material related to the trade deal that there was a provision to provide training for workers who lost their jobs, who might lose their jobs because of this trade deal. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, what we had trouble with was how it was paid for. It was going to be paid for by cutting the Medicare program by about $1 billion. That doesn't make any sense. So we fought that, and we were able to convince our allies in the Congress to strip that out of the bill. But this is a recurring theme in these negotiations dealing with the budget and the debt. And frankly, I don't know if you're aware of our Boost Social Security campaign, Richard, but we have to continue playing defense, no doubt about that. But we have got to start talking about improving these programs, improving Social Security, raising the benefit, having a more accurate measure for the COLA so that it is a fair amount and does keep up with inflation. We've got to start talking with regard to Medicare about expanding Medicare. It's a great program. I asked this group in Sioux Falls last Friday how many are on Medicare. Virtually everybody was. And how many of you think it's a great program? They all do. But it does not cover dental. It does not cover hearing. It does not cover vision, and it should. So we have started a campaign to improve these programs. Yes, we have to continue to be aware of the attacks on the programs and efforts to misuse the monies that are in these programs, but we've got to start changing the dynamic, and we hope to do that in many of the campaigns, political campaigns for federal office around the country.
Well, you're preaching to the converted on that one, Max Richtman, of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. I certainly couldn't agree with you more. I'm delighted that you're doing that. And you have, if I'm properly informed, you have a policy symposium coming up on the general issue of retirement security. Is that correct? And will some of these issues be on the table there?
That is correct. We have a symposium that is going to be held at the Georgetown University Conference Center on the 23rd. It's a whole day on the 23rd of October, and we have brought together some outstanding thought leaders on the issues that we've been talking about and others to talk about retirement security in a changing America. We're honored that Tom Harkin, who chairs our advisory board, is giving the keynote speech. Former Senator from Iowa, Lynn Woolsey, will be participating, and it is a bipartisan effort. Susan Collins is participating through a video message talking about her legislation, the HOPE Act, for addressing the serious Alzheimer's problem that so many families face. Republican Congressman from New Jersey, Chris Smith, will be speaking at the conference, as well as a whole host of other policy folks and former officials in government. So
and you have some good journalists there. I'm looking at the guests now.
Symposium will help us in changing the discussion.
Yeah, you have some good journalists there as well. You have Trudy Lieberman of the Columbia Journalism
Review, who's
been doing yeoman's work. Mark Miller of Reuters. So some very good people coming.
Excellent people. I hope you have a chance to tune into it. It will be live streamed, If you're not in the area, Richard, it will be live streamed on our website, ncpssm.org, and it'll be archived, so there'll be an opportunity for many besides the couple hundred that will be there in the audience to participate and
I will do
and
my
learn.
best. In fact, I should be in town personally, so hopefully I live in DC now, so I'm hoping that to attend myself. But in
I
any
would love
rate,
to see you, Richard. You're a great friend and a great ally on these issues.
well, likewise, and it's always great to have you on the program, Max Richtman, President and CEO of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. Thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thank you, Richard.